Hello, hi, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are again going to look on a topic in React Native, that is states, how you can create states in React Native. In the previous video, we have already looked upon props and components. If you haven't watched the video, please feel free to do so. We are going to use the same project for this topic as well. So before I dive into the code, there is a small announcement from my side. I, along with some other industry experts, are going to take workshops on different technologies. So, if you are very intrigued and very interested to learn from us, please click in the link in the description and fill out a very small form. Please, that will mean a lot. And thank you. So, let's dive straight into it. So, in the previous video, we have seen how to create props and also different components. We have already created different components in Pro for our project, which is this one, as you can see on the right hand side. And this is pretty much exactly the same code that was there. The only changes that has been made in this particular project is that I have added a scroll view to this part. Okay, I added a scroll view because what we are going to do is we are going to add an input field inside this particular component. So when I click on this particular field like this, input component will be displayed as well as a button. So there might be case where all these buttons are clicked and the view might go beyond the screen. That is why I have added this scroll view. Okay. And I have also used a prop for this scroll view, which is keyboard should persist tab. So if you don't add this, there will be a bit of uh, issues. There will be some issue with the keyboards. So instead of taking the value directly when pressing the save button, you have to press the button twice because the scroll view somehow makes the tab a little buggy. So that is why this is the property, this is the prop that is used to resolve that. This is the only change that has been done in this particular file, that you have added the scroll view, and then I have used one view as the parent view and have kept all these things inside it. That's it. There are no other changes. All these styles and everything is as it is, as it was in the last video. So as I said, if you haven't checked the video, please feel free to do so. That is the only change. So what we want to do is we want to add this functionality, as you already seen, that when I click on the button, these should appear, and again if I click on this particular tab, it should disappear. Also, if I write something over here, if I click on this particular button, it should be displayed in the logs. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So this particular button, this particular component is this social media view, which we have already created in the last session. But there are few changes that needs to be done with regards to these states. So all these visibility, invisibility, all these things are handled by these states. So in React Native, there are states for each component. There is a state when the button is visible. There is a state when the button is invisible. So we need to manage those states. We need to check if the value or if the variable is true for displaying the button and the input field, then it should be displayed. Otherwise, it shouldn't be displayed. That is the basic logic. So let's see how to actually execute this. So if I open this particular component, you can see there are some small changes in this. So these are the two states that we are going to use. This is something called use state, which is already provided to us by React Native. And what it does is basically it manages the state of the variable. So this is how you define and basically how you set and get the value of the states. So what we want to do is we want to set the input visibility, and if it is true, then we will display the input field. If it is not true, we will not display it. So for setting or for updating the value, we use this particular variable, which is set input visibility, which is basically a function which updates the value. And for just for reading the value, we use this variable, which is show input. So whenever we want to check the value of the state, we use this variable, and whenever we want to update the value of the state, we use this variable. So we say set input visibility, and in the bracket we pass either true or false to update the value. And let's say when we want to check if the what if the value is true or false, we just simply call this. Okay. And this is also a state which is used when we click the button. So when we click the button, we want to get the text, whatever is there inside the input field. And when we type a text inside the input field, we want to update the state. So a state can hold different values. A state can have a text value, a state can have numbers, a state can have true and false Boolean values. It can hold a lot of different types of values. So for the first one, it is holding a Boolean value. For the second, it is basically holding a text value. So when we are typing something, we are basically updating the state by calling this state set text function and passing the text that is getting typed, and we want to fetch. Basically, when we click the button, we want to fetch whatever has been typed. We call this particular variable, which returns whatever is the updated state at that moment. One more thing to keep in mind is that whenever we are updating the state, this particular variable will automatically get triggered. So wherever we are checking if the value is true and false, that particular block of code will automatically be triggered. So keep this in mind that whenever we are updating the state, the value of the state, the places where we are using the state will automatically get triggered. So what we have done is, first of all, we have added this pressable component. We have added this pressable component, as you can see, since we want to click on this particular component and then perform the action, right? So whenever we click, we want to either show the input field button, or again, when we click, we want to uh, make it invisible, right? We want to hide and we want to show. Once we click, it should be visible, and once we again click it, it should be hidden. That is the main core logic of this particular click over here. So for clicking, actually, we need to use a component which is called pressable, which is this. As you can see, I have wrapped whatever was there previously inside a component called pressable. And I have given some style to it, which is styles.row container, which is having basically a padding of 8 and flex direction of row. Since you can see, we have two components inside it. That is why it is given as row. So what is happening over here is, this is the function. Okay. So let's say if I click on the this particular component, this particular state function is getting triggered, and it is basically updating the state to the value opposite to what was there previously. So if it was true, it will become false. If it was false, it will become true. That is the logic behind this. Whenever I whenever I tap on this particular component, it will basically update the visibility of this particular, it will basically update the state of this particular variable. And inside this is exactly what was there before itself. Next, as I said, once we update the state, we need to show the updated UI component, right? We want to show this. So what needs to be done here is that we need to check if the value of the variable is true, then we need to add these two things also inside this. Apart from what is there before, we need to add this. So this is the basic state. And when we press on this, the state updates. And when the state is updated, we need to check if the value is true for that particular state. And if it is true, we need to render a new component. We need to add this particular component. Okay. So as you can see, this is the parent component. This is the parent view, which is up till here. And inside this will already be visible every time. This will always be visible. But on this part, which is the input field and button, should only be visible when the state is true. So that is what is happening over here. We are checking if the value is true, and if it is true, then we are rendering and then or we are adding these two components. So I have kept it inside a view, which is the parent view. You can see this is having a style of input container, which is having flex direction of row, align item center, justify content space evenly, margin left 12, and margin bottom 8. Okay. And it is having a text input and also a pressable. This is a pressable. As you can see, the button that is getting used is basically a pressable component. Instead of using button directly, I have used pressable because I wanted to add some styling to it. So this is the text input component, which is having a style of input, which is basically border radius 4 with 200, border color black, padding horizontal 10, and border width 1. As you can see, it is having a curved radius and all those things. And this is the placeholder for it, so that you can see a small hint sort of text inside it. And this is also a prop, which basically returns whatever is getting typed inside this particular component, this particular input field. So what we are doing here is we are getting the new text that is getting typed every time, and we are updating the state by calling set text. As if you remember, we have already added this at the top, and we are calling this function to update the state. So every time something is getting typed, we are calling this function and updating the state. And finally, when we are pressing the pressable component, which is having a style of button, padding 8, background color black, and border radius 4. And whenever we are pressing this, we are simply fetching whatever was the value that was saved inside that particular variable, in that particular state of get text. And we're calling get text, which will basically display the text in the console. And this pressable button is having a text inside it, which is basically displaying the saved text. And this is the style for that, which is basically a color white. So if I run this, if I open this, if you see the log over here, let's say if I type anything, if I type, let's say ABCD over here, if I press save, you can see it is displaying the text. Enter text is ABCD. As this is getting logged, and whenever we update the value, it will display the updated text. How is this happening? Whenever we are typing something in the input field, this particular function is getting called, which is updating the state by adding the new text that is getting written in the input field. And whenever we are pressing the pressable component, it is basically fetching whatever the value was there in the state and displaying it. So this is the basic concept of states. As you can see, I've used two different examples of showing you the states component. One was when we are basically displaying something and hiding something, and the second was when we are actually typing a text in the input field, because these are some major components that you will use every time you work with a mobile app and you need to use these states. So that is the basic use of states. It is used it is used heavily in React Native because this is the only way how you can manipulate the UI components, how you can show something and hide something, how you can update the text. So I hope you find it bit informative, and I will also link the code in the description itself. So please feel free to ask any doubts in the comment section. And if you remember, as I said, I am not a pro at React Native. I'm also learning, but I have a bit of experience in Android development by using Kotlin. So if you are interested in learning these technologies via workshops, please feel free to check out the description and fill out the form. It would be very helpful. And thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please leave a like and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video.